What's up, everybody? How you guys doing today? So today's September 29th, 2021. I just got out the gym about an hour ago. Just hanging out with my father, waiting for my mom to get out of work. She came through to my dad's shop. We were just chilling for a little bit. But anyway, so before we get today's video started, there's three things that I want to address. Some things that I want to address are pertaining to the last video. Well, the first video I ever did, which is the last video that I posted on September 9th. So I was supposed to post a video on September 19th, but I've been really busy lately. A lot of things kind of got in the way, so I wasn't able to do that. But I just want to say, first of all, thank you to everybody who tuned into my video, the first video I ever posted, my introductory video. And I appreciate you guys, taking the time out of your day to watch my video, and just take in whatever you guys can, and process whatever it is that I was saying. So what I want to try to do is make 3 videos a month. So I want to try to do the 9th, the 19th, and the 29th, with the exception of, I believe February is the month that has 28 days. So we'll figure something out. We'll figure something out for that time. But my goal is going to be, at least 3 videos a month, the 9th, the 19th, and the 29th. So that will kind of give people an idea of when to expect a video from me. And every video will be different topic. Some videos will have multiple topics in one video. We'll try to keep it to the minimum, so that way we can stay on track with, with whatever we're saying, and not get too off track with the topics of the video. So the 3 things I wanted to address before I get this video started is, the first thing, so when I made the last video, I was talking about how I took the California State Board for my nursing license, and I was saying how my title was for practitioner nurse. Now, I made a mistake by saying practitioner. What I meant to say is a practical nurse. So my title is LVN, licensed practical nurse. That's the title. And I received word about a week ago that I passed my state boards, and about 2 days ago I received the hard copy of my state license in the mail. So it's official. I'm fully licensed, and actually today I'll be submitting my first few applications. So for those of you who support me, for those of you who are rooting for me and cheering for me and want the best for me, I appreciate y'all, and things are looking good. We're making progress here, so we're just gonna keep it like that. We're gonna keep going with it. The second thing I wanted to address is, in my first video I spoke about the fact that I'm a fully enlightened being. So when I said that I'm a fully enlightened being, I didn't mean that I know everything. I just want to put that out there so people can understand that, we'll never know everything. And what I meant when I made that statement is that I'm fully aware now. And it's taken a while for me to get to this point in my life. I'm fully aware of how I affect the world, how the world affects me, how my past has affected me. I'm fully aware of my ancestors. I'm fully aware of my genetic makeup and my bloodline and where I come from. I'm fully aware of the events that took place in my life and what they represent and what they have done for me on a spiritual and on a physical level. And so I just want to put it out there and let y'all know that, when I said I'm a fully enlightened being, I just meant that I'm fully aware now of my situation, of who I am, of what I came here to do. I also want to say that I will always be a student. I will never stop learning, and that's just who I am. As part of being who I am, I will never stop learning, and I've accepted the fact that I'm going to be a student for the rest of my life here on earth. And that actually makes me very happy, because as being a student, I can be open-minded. I could communicate with people better, understand people better, and I could be open to new information, both from this world and from other realms that are unseen. Information from my ancestors, information from my past lives, just, overall, just being open to truth and to nature and to what is meant for me in my life. The third thing I want to address is, I just want to say this. I have no prejudice or no discrimination towards any person. I don't subscribe to a lot of beliefs that other people will subscribe to, and I am fully aware that everybody is at their own stage of spirituality, and so some people subscribe to certain ideologies, and some people never could subscribe to those things because of the level of spirituality that they're at. So I'm nobody to say who's right or wrong. I'm nobody to judge what level of spirituality you're currently at, and everybody has their own time and their own place. So I respect that process, and I respect all people. And I just want to say that if you're homosexual, if you're lesbian, if you're transsexual, if you're Asian, black, white, Mexican, Puerto Rican, Cuban, German, Jewish, whatever, Haitian, Cambodian, Russian, the list goes on, Australian, whatever race you identify as, or, ethnic background you identify as, I respect you, and I respect your race and your ethnic background. And if anything, I would like to know more about culture and about other people's cultures, because I think that's a very beautiful thing, and it's very interesting. It could create separation in the world, and it could draw lines between people, and even create, hatred and all those kind of negative things. But to somebody like me who's open-minded, that's never going to be an issue for me. So I just want to say off top that, I respect all people from all walks of life. And if anything, I could learn so much from other people, like I already have, because of the fact that I have that outlook on life and on other people. So those three things are the things that I really wanted to address. I know some people subscribe to certain religions, certain ideologies, certain doctrines. That's okay. Like I said, we're all growing. We're never going to stop growing, and we all have our time and our place. So I can't expect somebody to be at the level I'm at, and I can't judge somebody for not being at the level that I'm at. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and, just get right into the video, get right into the topics, because I'm not trying to make this very long. I am on the road right now. Like I said, I just left the gym a few minutes ago, and then I just left my father's shop. I pulled up to my father's shop right from the gym. His shop is just, right down the block from the gym. So I'm leaving there right now, and I'm actually on my way to my mother's house. So yeah, so today's video, it's gonna be a little tough for me to put everything into words, but I'm gonna do my best for you guys, because I've been really waiting to do this video. It's not gonna be perfect, so I know, in the time to come, that I'll probably revisit these topics plenty of times to fill in the gaps, and to just emphasize on how big this story is, how impactful this part of my life is, not just on me, but on the people I come across throughout my life, the people I interact with, and to be honest, my patients, because now I'm gonna be working as a nurse, so I'm gonna be caring for people's family members, and my experience throughout life and my life story and the things that have happened to my family directly impact the quality of care that I'm giving to other people's family members. So I just want to say that, and I want everybody to know that, I'm going to do my best. And I really, really appreciate the fact that I was able to come this far and become this nurse, because, I was lost for many years of my life and I had no real direction. The only thing I knew was that inside I was a good person. It may have not always shown on the outside, but inside I was a good person, and I always knew that. And I always knew that my mother and father tried their best to instill good things in me, good morals, good values, and just overall being a respectful person towards other people. So I always knew that, and I knew that, I would go through the darkness, but I knew that one day I would see the light. So I never lost faith, and here I am. I'm privileged with being able to have a job where I care for others, where I show others genuine love and attention and care and promote their healing, both physically, mentally, and emotionally, and spiritually. And that's something that I will always, be grateful for. So, yeah, I'm not one to question anything. I know that what happens to us is meant to happen to us. And so I trust the process, and I trust the universe above all else. And so, yeah, let's get right into it. First things I want to say, just some basics. So I'm originally from a small town in Northern California. Well, you could technically call it Central Coast California. It's in the northern part of California, but not all the way up like San Francisco or further, a little bit further than that. So it's a little bit south of that. So it's called Castroville, California. It's a little city. It's about a mile from the beach, from the ocean. It's a very beautiful city. But I'm gonna be honest, there's a lot of gang violence. There's a lot of gang activity, drug activity. There's a lot of competition growing up to uphold a certain kind of lifestyle and portray a certain kind of image. But I just want to say off top that I was never any of that. I'm going to be honest and say that, most of my family members fell into gangs and, were gang banging at a young age, or, whatever you want to call it, claiming a gang or, but for some reason, I always knew that wasn't the route for me. I never look, and just a quick disclaimer, I'm not bashing anybody who's, involved in a gang. I'm not bashing anybody who sells drugs. I'm not bashing anybody who does drugs. I'm not bashing anybody who's at a certain point in their life where, they might be involved in these kind of activities or these kind of things, Everybody has their time, like I said before, and everybody will find their way. And, so, I'm just simply telling my story from my life experience and how I felt and the things that I went through, the things that I did. So I'm not judging anybody. I want that to be known right now. I'm not judging anybody, because in life, most of the time we have to experience things in order for us to understand fully what it is we're doing and what's happening to us and how we're affecting the world around us. So like I said, I was never involved in gangs as far as, going out and flying a flag on my out my pocket or whatever, nothing like that. But I was no perfect child. I was involved in some questionable activities, growing up, and as I grew, I learned. But the one thing I could say about the city I was growing up in, Castroville, California, is that there's a lot of sports and athletics there, and most of the kids who grow up there grow up very athletic, and there's a lot of good competition when it comes to athletics. The local high school is known for a lot of football championships, baseball championships, basketball championships. My mother was actually on a championship basketball team when she was in high school, I believe in the 80s. So there's a lot of good stuff that came there, and I'm not gonna lie, growing up in that environment made me a very competitive person, both physically and mentally, and I know as far as my life path, I was always meant to be a competitive person because I have the warrior spirit, which makes me competitive. It makes me athletic. It makes me powerful in the sense of physicality, and it also gives me a strong mind. But growing up in that atmosphere nourished all of that. So when I was graduating 8th grade, going into my freshman year of high school, my mom, she got a job at a correctional facility, a very good job. So the only thing is that the job was in Southern California, El Centro, California to be exact. So my parents moved down to El Centro, California. Actually, to be honest, they moved down to a small town called Calipatria, California. And that was my first experience in the Imperial Valley, which is where I live now. I came down to live at, I think I was about 15 years old. And as soon as I got here, my mom took me to the local high school. We got registered, and then, you know, of course, I was asking about the athletics, you know, because football was always my sport, you know. So I got involved with the football team. I got to know a lot of people. Being the new kid from somewhere else, you know, I ran into my fair share of people who wanted to, you know, who didn't like me. But I dealt with those things accordingly, just like my father had taught me, you know, deal with things like a man. Don't run from nobody. Don't back down from nobody. So luckily, you know, everything went okay. And later in my life, you know, I moved, after that first year, my freshman year of high school, I moved back to Castroville, California, and I stayed with my grandmother against my parents, you know, against their will. They didn't want me to stay behind, but I basically, you know, ran away in a sense. And I know I was staying with my grandmother, so I know that's what gave them a little sense of security that I was gonna be okay. But you know, I was just really rebellious at that age, and you know, we'll revisit that time of my life plenty of times. But I just want to say that during that time of my life, my mother's oldest brother, which was my godfather, he passed away, and you know, it was something very, very hard for me to deal with, and that actually leads me to another point. When I was 15 years old, that was when I had my first major interactions with the spiritual realm, on a conscious level. I've always had interactions with the spiritual realm, but on a conscious level, to be fully conscious and aware of what was happening. That you know, when I was 15, that was when I experienced those first things, and it was a little scary for me. But you know, then again, you know, possessing the spirit that I possess, it allowed me to experience those things in a kind of positive way, and to take away what I needed to take away from those experiences and help me become who I am today. So that's a little bit about my background. You know, right now I'm 31 years old. I'm living here in El Centro, California. I went to nursing school in Palm Springs, California. I just finished not that long ago. And like I said, I received my license in the mail about 2 to 3 days ago. And so, you know, it was really nice because nobody was home when the mail came. And my mom got the mail and she said, "You have something here." And I said, "Open it." And it was my license. So for her to be the one to open that envelope, you know, with my license in it, was really, really special to me. And I wouldn't have had it any other way. You know, it made her very happy, you know, and to be honest, if it wasn't for my mother, I wouldn't have accomplished half of the things that I've accomplished in my life. And that's just being honest. My mom is she's a very aggressive woman. She's always expected the most from me, and she's always pushed me my whole life. And you know what? That actually ties in to the story that I'm gonna talk about right now, because I'm just gonna say this: I was born ahead of my time. You know, growing up as a kid, I always knew that I came to this earth, to this realm, ahead of my time. But I physically came here ahead of my time also. I was born, I believe, 2 to 3 months before I was due, before I was due to be born. And that drastically affected my life. And to be honest, it affected my life in the best of ways, and in very good ways. So, But the thing about that is that my mother had some type of like fear for me, because she knew that I would always kind of be developmentally behind as far as physically. And she told me that when she was in the hospital, her nurse was an Indian woman, and that woman told my mother to never treat me any different from any other kid. In fact, to push me a little harder, because I was gonna need to be a little bit tougher in terms of keeping up with the rest of the children and being able to perform, you know, at the same level or even at a higher level than they perform. And so, you know what, that I'm very thankful that my mom is like that. You know, it's been really hard to deal with, and I'm not even gonna try to lie to y'all, but it was for the best. I mean, I'm not a cocky person. I'm not egotistical, but I will tell you, once I make my mind up, I usually accomplish the things that I want to accomplish. And I know that directly comes from my mother being so aggressive with me, and you know, not picking me up every time I scrape my knee, or you know, sometimes making me feel like, you know, my best wasn't good enough. And you know, those can be hard things to go through as a child, but you know, luckily I was born for that. I was made for that. So I've handled it pretty well over the years, and I'm grateful. So my grandfather, from my dad's side, he's from Michoacan, Mexico. You know, he lived a long life. He passed away in 2020, March 2020. And there's a very beautiful story that goes along with that too. And we'll touch on his story in other videos to come. My grandfather, you know, he came from a big family, a lot of brothers and sisters, a lot of stuff like that. You know, he got together with my grandmother. They started having children. But the first boy who was born, he had two girls, and then the first boy that was born was my father. And then back in, I believe, like I want to say the late 70s, early 80s, my father was a teenager. He started, you know, crossing the border illegally through the mountains with my father. And there's some very interesting stories that come out of that time, and we'll touch on those stories too. But yeah, so my grandfather from my dad's side is from Michoacan, Mexico, and my dad's mother is from the Valley of Mexicali. So there's a lot of good stories and a lot of good life lessons to be learned from that time, and we'll do videos specifically on that time, so we could, you know, put everything into context and the timeline and everything, and lay it out for y'all. My grandfather on my mother's side, he was born in Puerto Rico, and he lived a very rough life. He also was born into a family of a lot of brothers and sisters. I believe my grandfather was one of the youngest ones, but he was kind of always an outcast in his family, and he was living on the streets by the time he was about, I'm not too sure, but we'll talk to my grandfather. He's still alive, and we'll do another video and put everything in context and his timeline and everything, and we'll actually, you know, get some firsthand stories from him in the video. But I believe he was on the streets from about the time he was, I want to say like 14 or 15 years old. He started making his own money. He started figuring out a way of life and how to live. And then eventually he came to the United States, where he met my mom's mom, my grandmother, and then they started having their children. Now, back in, I believe, the early 80s is when about the early 80s, mid 80s, I believe the mid 80s is when my parents met. Okay, this is gonna lead us into the story that I wanted to talk about today. So when my parents met, they were from two completely different worlds. My mom grew up, you know, of course, in an American style household. Of course, you know, Puerto Rican food and stuff like that, of course, but totally American. You know, they went to high school, her and her brothers. You know, they went to regular school just like all the other kids. They had, you know, their typical American upbringing, you know, middle class upbringing. They had a good upbringing. My grandfather was really a really active person, so he had them in BMX bike racing, which back in that time, late 70s, early 80s, was a real big thing. And my mom and her brothers were sponsored by the Schwinn bike racing team. So that was a pretty big deal back then. That was one of the biggest bike brands, BMX bike brands that there is. I mean, today it's still a big brand. So they were sponsored by that, and they did a lot of things when they were young. My grandfather, when he was in Puerto Rico, he was an amateur boxer. He was getting set up to go pro, but he came to the United States. And just there's a lot of things that go into where I came from and what's in my blood naturally. So we're gonna talk about my mother and father, okay? So my mother and father, like I said, my dad, he would cross illegally through the mountains, and he would come to the United States to work, mostly agriculture, with my grandfather. Eventually, my dad was old enough to stay in the United States by himself, so when he was, I believe, maybe like 17, 18 years old, my grandfather started traveling alone back to Mexico every so often, and leaving my father in the United States working. So eventually my father, got to know, his surroundings, his environment. He got to know how things were here in the United States. My dad has always been, a man before his time, just like me. He had to grow up fast. He had to learn things quick. And I believe my father passed that on to me, which, I'm very grateful for. Yes, most kids, I'm really appreciative for the kids who get to be kids, for a long time. I believe that's a very beautiful thing, but that was never meant for me, and that was never meant for my father. And and it shows, and it's actually one of the things that has helped us a lot in both of our lives. So my mother and father met, they started dating, and then eventually my mom got pregnant with her first child, which is my older sister. Now, a lot of you who know me personally are going to see this video, and you guys are not going to really know that I have an older sister. But I do have an older sister. Her name is Vanessa. She passed away. She passed away when she was about 2 to 3 months old. And this is the part of the story that's, that I want to touch on, because September 22nd was my sister Vanessa's 33rd birthday. So happy birthday, big sister. I know you're watching this, so I just want to say that. On a spiritual side, I believe that my sister coming to this earth, serving her purpose, and then transcending to the higher realm was all something that was set up by the universe. And it was something that is a privilege, not only for me as her younger brother, but just my family in general. She's definitely one of the spirit guides who protects and watches over my people, specifically me. I have seen my sister many a times, in the spirit realms, and she's very beautiful, and she's very informative and very loving, and she's very supportive. And so the things that are going on in the world right now, have a lot of people very down, a lot of people very confused, a lot of people just regretting the decisions that they're making. Other people are living in fear. So I believe that everything that happened during that time when my sister passed away directly ties in to what's happening in the world right now. Real quick, I'm just gonna go over some things so I don't make this video too long, and we'll come back and touch on these things. But what I want to say is that when my sister was born, she had a congenital heart disease, which is basically just means that she was born with a defect in her heart. Now, the defect she was born with is one of her main arteries was not hollowed out, so no blood could pass through that artery. Now, this wasn't a problem because now that I'm a nurse, I've studied pediatric, biology and stuff like that, and maternity and newborns and stuff. So I feel very privileged to know the information I know. And that actually will lead us into other stories too, because going through nursing school and learning certain things, I've seen a lot of those things firsthand, directly firsthand. And it's just crazy how you could be learning about something and then it happened to you in your life or happened to somebody around you, and it's just it's mind-blowing. But it's the universe at work, so I never question it, and I never look at it as something negative, because there's always a very valuable positive lesson to be learned through anything we go through in life. So we always got to keep that in mind. But yes, my sister was born with one of her arteries not hollowed out, but it wasn't a big problem, because when children or when infants are born, their circulation through their heart is different from an adult circulation. And there's a specific hole in the heart that allows blood to circulate in a way that adult's heart can't circulate. And if I'm not mistaken, this is off the top of my head, but I believe that hole is called the foramen or ovale. Foramen ovale. You can look it up for yourself. I believe that's what it's called. So after, I believe, I want to say like a month or 2 months after the child is born, the infant's born, this hole closes, and then the heart starts to function like an adult heart. The circulation reroutes itself, and then it stays that way for the rest of the person's life. So the doctors presented, to my mother. They said, we either do surgery, or in a certain amount of time, your baby girl is gonna pass away, because her heart will not circulate the blood the way it's supposed to throughout her body and throughout her heart and then throughout her body. So my mom and dad, of course, they were very taken by this information. They were young, in their early 20s, their first child, so there's a lot of emotion behind that. There's a lot of just a lot of things that went on during that time. So they had been presented with a 50% chance, 50-50, that everything would be okay. They flew out a specialist, a pediatric specialist from Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken, one of the best specialists for pediatric cardiac problems in the whole United States. And so my mother, she wasn't going to stand by and just let time go by without doing something. So her and my father and my grandmother, my mom's mom, they decided that they were going to go ahead and do something about it and try it. And so that's what they did. My sister went into surgery, and everything came out beautifully. Everything went good. The surgery went well. It was a success. A few hours out of surgery, my sister ended up having some complications, and ultimately she suffered a massive heart attack. They massaged her heart. They tried to bring her back to life a few times, and after trying for hours and hours, they were not able to restart her heart, and ultimately she passed away. So my big sister, surgery went well, but what happened was, after surgery, they cleared out her artery and blood started flowing the way it's supposed to, which, to my knowledge, I believe it was just too much of a workload for her heart, because her heart was not used to that heavy workload, because of the way things were circulating before the artery was cleared out. So it made her suffer a massive heart attack. And the time after that, things were a little sad. Well, I mean, I wasn't there, so I can't really tell you. And saying a little sad is an understatement. I'm pretty sure my parents were very, very affected by this, specifically my mom. And my dad too. My dad has always been a person of few words. And, he never really shows too much emotion. But I know for a fact it affected him very much. So they dealt with things as best as they could. They buried my sister in the cemetery where most of my family members are buried on my mother's side. And they went ahead and proceeded and tried to see how things were going. tried to, figure out a way of being, continue living and just continue moving forward. It wasn't easy. My mom was depressed for many months. She wouldn't eat. She was just very, very depressed. And you can't blame her, it's got to be one of the hardest things to deal with, So finally my mom was at an all-time low, and my grandmother, didn't really know how else to help her. So what my grandmother did was she took her to the local church in the city of Castroville, where everybody goes, and she had her speak to the Father. And my mom told me that when she first got to the church, that she was very apprehensive. She told my grandmother, why are you even bringing me here? Nobody knows what I'm going through. Nobody can understand what I'm going through. And my grandmother said, everything's gonna be okay. You need to have faith, and you need to trust that everything will be fine. So my mom spoke to the pastor, the father of the church, and naturally, she told him that he could never understand her pain, that he could never understand, what she was feeling, what she had been through. And the pastor agreed. He said, you know what, you are correct, but you're not seeing what's important here. And he told her that, in his words, God will not put us through the things that are not meant for us, and that she was actually very privileged to nurture this child to full term, and then deliver this child as a healthy baby girl, and then for this child to have this, this issue with her heart, and then pass on into the next realm. The pastor explained that if God did not see fit for my mother to handle that, he would not have done that, and that she was actually doing God's work here on earth, and that she was very privileged to be in the position that she was in, and that she should be very proud of herself, and that she should understand that she was chosen, specifically chosen, to deliver my sister, to nurture her all those months, and that she should understand that she was a very special woman because of the fact that God chose her to experience that, and to live to tell about it, and to live on and flourish and have a full life. My mom told me that it took her some time, to really process those words and those ideas, but eventually my mom started seeing the light. My mom started seeing that those words were actually very true, and my mom started feeling better, and she started feeling a sense of I don't want to say pride, but for lack of a better word, pride. She started feeling like you know what, this he's right. This is something that not just anybody can live to tell about, and recover and be healthy from this. Eventually my grandmother started telling my mom, you know what, you need to start considering having more children, because you and your husband deserve to live a full life, and actually, in honor of your child that passed, you guys need to have more children, to have a family, and to move forward, and to continue thriving, and facing the struggles of this world, and feeling good and enjoying the happiness that life has to bring. And so eventually my mom got pregnant again with me. Her pregnancy with me was very complicated. She was sick a lot of the time. She couldn't hold down her food a lot of the time. She couldn't sleep well at night. She was very nervous. She was very scared for me. She was just worried that something would happen to me. And long story short, I was born ahead of my time as a premature baby, but I was born healthy. And my mom told me that when I was born, that she was very happy, and she felt fulfilled, and she felt like she had actually accomplished what God wanted her to accomplish. She had lived through the death of her first child, my big sister, and then proceeded forward with her life and growing both spiritually and mentally and physically, and then delivering me as a healthy child. Yes, I was premature. Yes, I was ahead of my time, but that was the universe. That's what the universe wanted. So here I came. My birthday is March 29th, 1990. I'm 31 years old. Now, I was born in Dominican Hospital in Santa Cruz, California. Me and my sister were the only two born in that hospital. Okay? The rest of my family on my mother's side were born mostly in Salinas, California. On my father's side, most of my family members were born in Mexico. So fast forward to more recent times, I ended up getting with my baby's mother. She got pregnant and we had a due date. Now, one day I told my baby's mother, I said, you know what? I really think we should have our baby girl in Santa Cruz at the hospital where I was born, where my sister was born. She was on board. She thought it was a great idea. So a few days before she was due to have my daughter, which my daughter's name is Maya, I told you guys in the first video, we drove up to Watsonville, California, which is about a 10 to 15 minute drive outside of Santa Cruz, California, which is where the hospital was. Then we spent the night at my aunt's house, and we were there for about a day. And then one night, my baby's mother started having contractions, so we took her into the hospital. It was about 2 or 3 in the morning. And then, you know, they told us that, you know, it wasn't time yet, and I'm assuming that it was Braxton Hicks, which is what she was experiencing. So we went back home to my aunt's house. Then in the morning, she was still in pain, so we took a walk, and I'll never forget that walk because I knew it. I knew that this was the last walk that I would take with my baby's mother, with us being just adults. You know, I knew that after that we would become parents. And sure enough, we walked down the street, and on the way back, we turned around to come back, and she just started having massive pain. And I knew it. I felt it. I said, this is it. It's time. So I helped her get back to the house as best as I could. We went to the hospital, and then sure enough, they admitted her. And then, you know, time started going. She started dilating further and further. You know, they took her into the maternity ward. She was dilating further and further. She started, you know, getting in pain. She wanted to have a natural birth, which is, you know, that's something that's very special in my eyes, because, you know, that's just, I mean, to me, that's like being a woman, you know, that's something that's really, really amazing. So this is the last part of the story that I want to say for now, so we don't make this video too long. My parents, they were here in El Centro, California, when my baby's mother she was in labor. And I called them and I told them, look, she just went into labor. You guys need to get down here. Or I don't know if it's active labor. I guess it's pre-labor. So they were 9 hours away. 10 hours to be exact, because Santa Cruz, California is about 10 hours from here, from El Centro, California. So they got in their car, they left. Then I called them back, everything was happening throughout the night. And then in the morning, I called them back, and sure enough, they were about an hour away. And I told them, you know what, she's gonna come any minute, anytime soon, like, you know, within the next hour or so, she'll be here. You guys need to get down here. So my parents get to the hospital. My mother comes in the room. It's me, my mother, and my mother-in-law. We're in the room with my baby's mother. And about 10 to 15 minutes after my parents got to the hospital, my daughter was born. It was just, to describe it, I mean, it's just probably the best moment of my life to see my daughter for the first time. But you know, what made things more special to me is that my daughter was born in the same hospital where I was born and my older sister was born. And to see my daughter healthy, to hear her cry for the first time, to see her eat for the first time, latch on to my baby mother's breast and begin to breastfeed, you know, all these things were just going through my head, and I just felt like the universe was just working like a clock, like all the gears were just turning and everything was just aligning so perfectly. But what really hit me is the first time I seen my father hold my daughter. My father came into the room after they had cleaned her up and got her weight, you know, checked her, gave her first physical and everything, and she breastfed for a little bit. And then my father came into the room, and the first time I seen my father hold my daughter, I knew right then and there that I was a man. And that was one of the proudest moments of my life. That moment will live forever inside of me, because, you know, I know it's special when fathers have children, you know, when they have sons. I'm sure it's something very beautiful, but for some reason, I just feel like when a father has a daughter, that's something that is probably not matched by anything. And to see my father hold my daughter as a healthy, beautiful baby girl in the same hospital where his first child, his baby girl, was born, it was everything to me. It was a symbol of nature. It was a symbol of my ancestors being present and guiding us through this journey of my baby's mother having my daughter. It was a symbol of my sister, you know, Vanessa, being there at the same hospital where she was born and guiding my sister into this world and making sure that she was safe and that she transcended into this realm peacefully and beautifully. And it's just something that, I mean, it's almost hard to talk about. And we'll revisit these topics plenty of times, you know, throughout time as I do these videos. But I just want y'all to understand how important this is, how beautiful this is. And to this day, you know, my father and my daughter have this connection that is just something that is so strong, so beautiful. And my daughter coming to this world has done so much for so many people. And I'm strongly convinced that my daughter is very much how my sister would have been had she lived out the rest of her life on this earth. This is where I'm gonna stop the video, you guys, so it's not too long. But I just want to say that I appreciate your guys' time today. Thank you for listening to this story, and we'll touch on these topics again at another time. You know, like I said, you know, I'm not used to speaking in this manner, but I know that it's very necessary. And there's other topics that I wanted to cover in this video, but you know, this video, you know, it took a while for me to explain everything. And there's a lot of things that I left out, but like I said, we'll revisit these topics plenty of times throughout time, and we'll go ahead and fill in the gaps and add in more things so you guys can understand the impact of how important this was to not only me coming to this world, but my sister coming to this world, my younger brother coming to this world, and, you know, my daughter coming to this world, and what it has done for my entire family and what it has done for the world. Because honestly, we're the type of people who care. And I know all people care, but in the time to come, I think you guys will really see how much I care and how that affects me in my life and how it has caused me a lot of pain, but it has also brought me a lot of happiness in my life. So I wanted to touch on vibration in this video, but real quick, I just want to say vibration. You guys can go look it up yourself, and there's a lot of videos on vibration. But what I want to say to you right now, we'll talk more about vibration in the next video, but what I want to say to you right now is that you guys should always aim to keep your vibration high. You guys should always do what feels right in your heart, as long as it's coming from a positive source of energy. And you guys should always trust the universe. The universe is always present. The universe is always in our favor. And as long as we're seeking to vibrate high, we will always be okay. And we will always have the approval of our ancestors to move forward and to just accomplish